Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle Dang, a mechanical engineering major, and I am a member of the 2020 cohort of Montgomery College's Southern Management Leadership Program. Today's podcast is an interview with Aisha Bowe, founder and CEO of STEMBoard. Ms. Bowe is here to talk about how her business venture started, some hardships she might have faced, and any plans she has for herself next. Let me pass the mic to Aisha here to introduce herself a bit.
Hi, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and share a few war stories with you all. As you mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of STEMBoard, a company I founded 7 years ago after leaving NASA as an aerospace engineer. Today, we are on the Inc. 5000 list as one of the fastest growing companies in America, and I look forward to telling you more about that journey.
All right, so Aisha, I have a few questions set up for you to help everyone get a glimpse of your experience as an entrepreneur. Some startup questions. If you could do an elevator pitch for your company right now, what would it be?
Right now, my main product focus is Lingo. Lingo is a self-paced coding kit that helps students age 13 and above learn how to build STEM activities at home. Clients of ours include GE, Microsoft, Southern University, as well as other middle schools and high schools around the country that are interested in providing engaging STEM activities while students are at home in the pandemic.
So when and how did you discover this idea to be something that had business potential?
So as I mentioned earlier, I founded the company STEMBoard about 7 years ago. And our main focus is on providing engineering services to federal clients. Let's talk big enterprise level engagements. And one of the things that I realized as a African-American female aerospace engineer, which people call rocket science because it's essentially what it is, was that I was going into schools and I was introducing myself, so excited to talk about my business and what was happening, only to find out that people didn't think engineering was fun, they didn't think it was sexy, and they weren't inspired to pursue careers in STEM like you were. And so I created an offshoot of my company that focused solely on this, providing engineering exposure at a really young age. And when the pandemic hit earlier this year, we buttoned up some of the things that we would teach in our workshops, and we decided to compartmentalize them into a box that we now have distributed to homes.
It's really interesting. I didn't know that it started especially during this pandemic. That's really good that you saw this setback for many people as an opportunity. So with questions about you, oh, sorry, did you want to go?
No, please, let's continue.
Yeah, for both your employees and consumers, what about your company do you feel like sets you apart from others?
So STEMBoard has many lines of business. I think that's one thing that sets us apart. There's a idea that when you're starting up, you should be really, really, really narrow. But because I did not have access to capital, I was forced early on to drive value through a number of mechanisms with my consumer base. And so not only do we provide quality engineering services, but we also consult to institutions and organizations that are looking to develop STEM content and curriculum. This from early on made us really, really different because while we were not focused on one product, we had several services and products that complemented each other. And that allowed me to build a profitable business without outside investment.
So what kind of environment do you feel is the best environment to succeed in?
Wow, I think it's an interesting question. I'm not sure that there is ever anything as ideal. Looking back, it was the adversity that I faced in life that made me who and what I am, and that has driven me to run the business that I do. Had I received capital, I'm not sure I would be running a profitable company because I may not be under the gun to do so.
So with some positive experiences of your business, can you tell me about a time that you are specifically proud of?
Oh yeah, I'm very proud of a number of things that we've done as a company. For the last 5 years, we've operated the largest free STEM camp in the Caribbean. We now have had hundreds of students that have come through our camp, and are in engineering programs in the US. I'm proud of being able to say that I'm a woman who owns an engineering consulting firm that's been recipient of significant investment from prestigious government agencies, and that I've been profitable and run a sustainable business. And I'm almost hitting the 10-year mark.
So, what is something in your life that you are grateful for? And it doesn't have to be about business either, or just anything that could have helped you with your business.
I am grateful for a great many things, so I'll try to compartmentalize this. I started my degree in aerospace engineering with pre-algebra and a community college. I was never the student that anybody would think would be voted most likely to succeed, and quite frankly, I'm shocked when I look back at all of the things that I thought went wrong that went into a life that I feel is going right. One of the things that I'm the most proud of today is that I get to invest in others' education. I get to spend my time traveling around and inspiring others to pursue a path of engineering and entrepreneurship. And then I also was able to buy a home by myself. And I love this because when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed, I really started to recognize that, hey, because of the things that she did, I can have a bank account without needing to have a male co-signer. I can own a home without needing to have a husband. And in doing this, I was the first woman in my family to actually purchase a home on her own.
That's really amazing. So, with some challenges that you might have faced as a woman in STEM, do you feel like you need to have a specific image to be taken seriously?
No, I don't. And I really feel like there are boxes and we need to shred them and throw them in the trash. I have always felt that I was different. And early in my career, it led to a lot of self doubt and insecurity until I started to lean into who and what I am. And the company that I run is profitable because I'm authentic to my journey. As a female founder, I'm okay with saying I don't know everything. I'm not perfect, and I'm going to make space for you to express your gifts so you can make my organization a better place. And I'm okay with saying, hey, I didn't have these STEM boxes and STEM kits when I was younger, and maybe I would have come to engineering as a career field sooner. So let's make that, right? And now that's a product, and now that product is profitable. And so I encourage people to just be you. I promise the world is going to adjust.
Were there ever any discouragements, frustrations, and obstacles that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no such thing as perfect. And even today in running a business, you're going to find that you may be having an awesome year in one area of your company and a totally awful year in another area of your company, and you just have to deal with it. And so I think that mindset is the most important thing to cultivate. And for me, it was developing a sense of self confidence and disciplining my mind to not view what people perceive as failure as a setback, right? Like I often think that no is yes in progress. And that takes time because we often internalize the way that other people view life. People will tell you be realistic, right? Be reasonable. And I'm unwilling to be realistic and be reasonable because I truly feel it's a commonly traveled path to mediocrity. If I was going to be realistic, I wouldn't have dared to go to University of Michigan and get an engineering degree from community college. I wouldn't have dared to go to NASA and work there for 6 years. And I sure as heck wouldn't have dared to try to found a company without a rich aunt or a rich uncle or any idea of how to run a business. And so I say everything that you're feeling when it comes to discouraging, um, situations, it's normal, right? Like go ahead and feel that sense of disappointment, but use that as a way to challenge yourself to think differently and propel you into success.
Mhm. How has this pandemic affected your business?
Well, I now have a product company. I entered in the pandemic having a service company and was quite happy with the engineering consulting that we were providing to our clients. And with, April came, hey, we're now a product company, and now we are shipping boxes to thousands of houses across the globe. I never thought I'd be sitting here telling you that we have tech companies that are coming and buying our product. It was just something that we had, and we decided we really wanted to try to give back, and now it's a product, and arguably I probably created another company. Who knew? I mean, hey, but I think that's the thing about entrepreneurship that's so inspiring to me, is that a lot of the companies that people see and know today were created in the recession or in some type of financial inflection point. So when you look at constraints often drive creativity. They force people to think differently. They force them to really do more with less. And I welcome it. I don't think that if the pandemic hadn't hit, we would even have this, because we wouldn't have been forced to create it. And so I look at it as a good thing that came out of an uncomfortable circumstance.
Yeah, they were talking about in my class traits of an entrepreneurship, and that's actually one of the most important traits, to see opportunities where other people see, failures or setbacks.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a saying that I love, if we're gonna swap a couple here right now, which is management is seeing down the hallway, whereas leadership is seeing around the corner.
So, what advice would you give to other Black women in STEM?
Be visible. I think there's a lot of power in showing up and telling your story and not being afraid to say, hey, I am Michelle and I'm on this journey. And for many years in my career, I wasn't comfortable doing that. Like, even to this day, I feel nervous sometimes when people ask me what I do. I say, oh, I'm an engineer. And then they go, oh, really? Like an industrial engineer? I'm like, no. No, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's interesting to me to watch how people interact with me in the real world. And so I'll go, they're like, oh, wait, are you like a computer scientist? Can you code? I'm like, well, actually, I'm an aerospace engineer. No way. Really? Where'd you go to school? I'm like, okay. And it becomes this whole line of questioning. And a lot of that is because it's uncommon, and it's uncommon because people have not seen us represented in society in these ways, because we're not telling these stories. So I don't care if you're black, brown, or purple. If you're a woman in STEM, get out there and share your journey and let people be inspired by it, because we're all role models to somebody somewhere.
Yeah, I recently went to this community college event with NASA in the Wallops Island Flight Facility Center.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember speaking to my mentor. I was like, what do they do to reach out to a more diverse audience to appeal, to want to work for them? Because even they can admit that their history has just been, white old men. And they talked about how these programs that are made to target minorities or just people of a different diverse mindset is just going to help the future and be more well-rounded in general.
I agree, but a point that I want to make, when we talk about the traditional individuals in the field, there's always kind of like, oh, white old men. I'm going to tell you right now, some of the most powerful mentors that I've had in my life have fallen into that category. They understood their power, and they understood that they were a mechanism for change. So when I went to go and work at NASA, the director of engineering took me underneath his wing, and he trained me to be, just to be great, right? Like, here's what you're going to do every year. You're going to track every single thing you do in a spreadsheet. You're going to align it to the agency goals. And when your supervisor goes to review you, you're going to have a printout. So like, I used to show up to my performance reviews with literally an Excel sheet, and I could have made a PowerPoint. And
Mhm.
every single thing that I did, I kid you not, I had the day, I had the description, I had who was involved, I had how many people were in the audience or how many people were touched, and then how it aligned to the agency mission. Boom, there you go. Here you go to evaluate me. Because we often think in life that people who are our supervisors are tracking us, right? Or teach, but they've got a lot of other things going on. And you have to be very clear about what you've done and what your contributions are. I don't think I would have gotten that in another, like from somebody else, right?
Mhm.
I also, and I think it's really important for people to understand that like the most powerful partnerships are between individuals who have different perspectives. And so be open to this idea that you can partner with somebody and be mentored or sponsored by somebody who has an entirely different background from you. I really credit that with me being able to navigate the engineering and the entrepreneurship world because there was nobody in my family who had any of that type of experience. When I was born, my father was driving taxi and had a moving company, and my mother was cleaning houses. And now I'm a CEO of a 7-figure company. And that's because I was mentored by the traditional people who understood that the future was going to be women of color leading, and they wanted to change.
That's a really good way to look at it. Looking back 10 years ago, would you have seen yourself in this position?
No, and I'm very happy that we didn't have Instagram and Facebook in the way that y'all do now because I was not, I mean, I 10 years ago, I was, oh, let me not date myself too much, but I was just happy to have a job where I didn't have to live with my parents and I thought I could survive. I had no concept of the power within me to change the world. I mean, it is still a trip for me to be able to say to somebody on the street or in a bar or on a date or wherever, I'm just going to wait for you to Google me since you don't believe that I'm actually an engineer. I'm just going to hold. I mean, that's wild. It's absolutely, it's wild, but it just goes to show that it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. I was a community college student that now has a career that I made up and a life that I shape every single day because I believe that I can.
Yeah. I heard this statistic where like um there's a lot of success that comes from community college students. I don't know the exact statistic, so I don't want to, spread false news, but um
But
yeah,
it's
what kind of
true. And
things, this is like off topic, but what do you feel, um, like what would you say to break the stigma around community colleges?
I believe that you are, oh, such a good question. And let me try to settle my mind around a singular answer because I could lecture on this. When I went to community college, there were people around me who, for whatever reason, felt that I was less than best. But now I'm 40-foot billboard on the interstate in my home state, and they have to drive past my face when they go to work every morning, right?
Yeah.
And what, and what I think that society doesn't really appreciate is that you're putting a lot of pressure on somebody in high school to define who they are. And if you don't have a good home environment, or if you don't have finances and whatever, whatnot, maybe you don't perform in high school, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to be a high performing person in life. So community college for me provided one, a way to save money. I'm really happy that I spent my first 2 years there because that's part of the reason why I am now a homeowner because I saved a ton in college. I also learned and I learned how to study. I learned how to manage my life. And so when I went to my 4-year school, I really was able to take advantage of that opportunity because of the intelligence and the maturity that community college gave me. I can't to this day understand why anybody feels as though that's worth judging critically. It's a phenomenal resource and it should be treated as such. you are just as good as everybody else elsewhere.
Yeah. I felt like, especially within the past year, I was able to really take advantage of the resources that community colleges give you too. Like, I wouldn't have been able to have the opportunity with NASA if I wasn't in a community college and I didn't read my emails. And I wouldn't have the opportunity to have, undergraduate research programs with other schools because I wouldn't have the time for it. And I learned to really appreciate like going to a community college as well.
Yeah, I think you guys are probably getting that I'm the poster child for community college, and I really try to make it known in most of the interviews that I give that I am a proud community college graduate, and I highly suggest that people go there first because universities are businesses. The amount of debt that you can avoid is not insignificant, and you want to give yourself the best possible chances to make connections and have emotionally enriching and rewarding experiences. And community college gives you that. And on top of that, I mean, I went from Washtenaw University of Michigan. So you can't tell me that the community college education is less than best if the fourth best school in aerospace in the country is accepting those credits. Hey, I think most other great colleges and institutions would as well. So there are so many community colleges that have transfer agreements with major universities that allow you to matriculate that I have to stop because I can rant about that all day.
So, what is your advice for people who have an idea but who don't have the confidence to execute it?
Wow. So I'm going to try to break this into two pieces. I think that the most important thing you can do for yourself in life is build your confidence. You need to study it and recognize that it's a habit and it's something that you're going to work on maybe every day for the rest of your life. Even with what I've accomplished, I don't jump out of bed going, ah, you're amazing. No, I wake up in the morning and I say my affirmations and I slowly kind of lean into the things I have to do for the day because everything that I achieve requires a different level of output from me, right? So the confidence that I've built is a habit. I would one, watch how you talk to yourself. Are you positive to yourself, even in situations that you view would be disappointing? You must be. You have to change that internal dialogue and start talking to yourself in a way where you love and embrace every part of the journey. And that will transform how you perform and how you show up to the outside world. And that's important because when you have an idea, it may be a long time between when you have that idea and when that idea becomes successful. It took 6 years for me to go from community college student to NASA employee. It took another 7 years for me to go from NASA employee to entrepreneur, and 3 years to go from entrepreneur to I think I can actually eat and live and sign a lease on this entrepreneurial salary and being full time. And so that takes mental strength and fortitude. But if you can just make progress over the long haul, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have setbacks day to day, but if you can just get up and make some form of moving forward happen every single day, you're going to look back and go, wow, I really accomplished something special because guess what? The time is going to pass whether or not you believe in yourself.
I personally hope to incorporate more representation of marginalized people myself into the field of STEM. What are some tips that are important to keep this in like this mission going forward?
Yeah. So, firstly, show up and show out. Don't be afraid to tell your story to anybody who's willing to hear it, right? Be active in social media. I would reach out to people who you see, who you admire online, kind of like how you did to me, like, hey, Aisha, can you hop on this podcast? Yes, absolutely, right? Do more of that and set your sights higher, right? I don't care. Send Michelle Obama a LinkedIn, send Oprah a LinkedIn. Like sometimes you'll be surprised who you actually can connect with and interview because they know what it was like to be you or to just be on the come up. I also would encourage you to get more in touch with nonprofits and groups that are specifically designed to cultivate the emerging STEM leaders. I love mentorship. And I also feel as though I have reverse mentors. So I have a mentee who is younger than me. And quite frankly, she mentored me into being a mentor. I didn't think that I was a role model or could do it until she was like, "Hey, I look up to you." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I guess you do. So we got to make this happen." And now I'm super proud to say that she's getting ready to graduate from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo with an aerospace engineering degree. And so it's about being present, about showing up, and about being inclusive in the community.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Aisha. I am so happy that I was able to interview you, and I also thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to just let me and my classmates know more about, what it takes to be an entrepreneur, especially in STEM. Because like there's so many big companies out there. Like, how can you get this startup going? Like how like it's nice to hear from someone, especially from a community college like me and my classmates are, and how they were able to find success in entrepreneurship, especially during this time of a pandemic and everything being online.
Well, you're more than welcome. And I want to challenge you guys to see the world as a little bit flatter. And the reason I say that is now with everybody at home, the need to have an office has dissipated, right? The need to have a traditional business storefront it's not what it used to be. So you can get online and you can identify all of the pieces that you need to start building a small company now. Use them, right? Get on Upwork and find a consultant and build yourself a website. Get on Amazon, start selling a product. All these things can be achieved from the comfort of your home and a computer. And there was a time, and not to date myself, when my parents would take me to Blockbuster and we would get a video. But Blockbuster was slayed by Netflix, right?
Mm-hmm.
There, there's this idea that because companies are large, that they're impermeable, but it's just not true. So get out there and change the world.